Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2023-2024 budget study session. Corporate fund budget. Today's study session, it's 12:30 p.m. And today's the 14th, Friday, April the 14th. We're going to have today the Treasurer's Office, Department of Public Works and Highway, Building Maintenance, Major and Local Streets, Water and Sewer. We'll go ahead and start with our Treasurer, Lisa Hicks-Clayton, and our Controller.
Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So if you would turn to, let's see what page number.
17.
This is 17, yep. One page that you have here for the Treasurer's Office. This is proposed budget for the next fiscal year. We could just go right down them if you like. Okay. Is that preferred?
Well, what I've been doing, Madam Treasurer, is just in case you could give like just general bullet points, the main stuff, because some stuff is repetitive year after year after year. Yes. And then take questions from council members.
Yeah, mostly yes.
So the big changes,
yeah,
and then questions from council members.
Well, interesting enough with the Treasurer's Office, there's not always a lot of changes.
Correct.
Consistently, this budget is relatively the same, other than there's a few increases that are due to inflation and other expenses that naturally increase. Like, you know, when you look at contractual services, you may say, well, how did it go from the 29,640 to the 45? That's because the previous year we had a credit on the books of 10,000, and that was applied. And since that credit's been used, our regular expenses are approximately 45,000, so that's restored. Everything else, let's see, if we just go down, salaries we don't necessarily control, that's contractual. Elected salaries, of course, are set by that commission. The retirement years, this is the third year for that item, so that will drop off next year. That's for one of our retirees from our department. Let's see, looks like part-time is, of course, relatively the same with a moderate increase, a little bit there. Down to overtime, again, we're running the same with that department. We use overtime to catch up on workload when employees are off and their work, unfortunately, can accumulate, even though we cross-train our staff. But I know Comptroller King will address that a little bit further, what our design and what we're looking to do with that item. Moving on down, fringe benefits we're not controlling. That's through HR and those arrangements. Our supplies remain the same, approximately, a little bit increase, and that's because of inflation and other costs that increase. Paper, things like that. Inflation has taken its toll on everyone. Our dues membership is running this, again, the same, right? $750. That's our membership to Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association, the Association of Public Treasurers of United States and Canada. Those are those memberships, so there's not a lot of them, but it's $750. The mileage is the same. Travel education, we came in at $3,000 the previous year. We've asked for $3,500 this year. That's because we have our staff, you're going to see training added as well. We'll take those two at the same time. $3,500 and $500 on those two line items. We are now having newer staff that has been attending trainings. They just completed their national certification for cash handling, and we're always looking for training opportunities for them. And also my deputy, myself, and our management staff go to other trainings too that are specific for management. So that's why you see those numbers, but that's a small increase there. Capital outlay is always going to be $1,000 across the board. It has been since 22, and that is to accommodate any emergencies, or like say a cash machine goes down, the machines that verify cash and whatnot, we need to be able to replace those. So that is that contingency capital outlay in case of emergencies. So that is our budget. So overall, we're at $609,514 compared to $585,368 from the previous year.
Yeah, so unlike some of the other departments, this one, honestly, as you know, I have a lot of questions usually, but there was nothing, honestly, because it's pretty much the same budget.
Yeah.
Nothing on my end.
Pretty much the same budget.
Yeah.
Consistently since I don't know how many years it's
right,
been.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Why did the fringe benefits go down so much? Okay, fringe benefits went down because last year we had the government pension included in that.
Oh,
And right now, fringe benefits is only going to be your FICA, which is your employer tax, and then you'll see a separate item for the pension. And that way we can actually keep track of how much pension is charging or is being charged by department.
Sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to add one thing that the treasurer has requested, and that is another individual in her department. We have been dancing around that back and forth, being that she does have a debt, well, quite a few of your employees, and there have been been there quite a while, and they've accumulated a lot of excess time off. So when they're off, there isn't anybody to cover that position, so the work sits till they get back, and then that kind of affects it's a trickle effect, because then when it comes into the comptroller department, it could be 2 weeks late, 3 weeks late, whatever, depending on the time frame that it takes them to get caught up. So we are kind of like thinking about maybe adding another full-time employee, and again, it's kind of like open discussion right now if we're going to have one that's going to be for both departments, where it would be like a floater for both departments, and if that's the case, it would have to be probably more of a salaried position.
For both departments, you and yours?
And the comptroller,
Okay.
yes. And that would,
And then, couldn't that be kind of a good thing? Because, and I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but,
It's okay.
I'm thinking it could be a good thing, because, again, I'm a little, talk about the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
in the last, few years, we've had, between the controllers and the treasurer's office, and I think a lot of it comes down to way back when, in maybe 20, 30, whatever it is, years ago, the right systems were not put in place. And even when I talked to Plant Moran, a lot of systems are not in place, a lot of logistics are not in place. So this is not a personal name type of thing.
Right.
It's more of a position / two different departments that you would like to think would gel well together, but unfortunately, based on many years of things not being done, let's say at A+ level, I'm trying to be PC. So not being done at A+ level leaves a lot of gaps, and sometimes, as you know, we've had situations where there's been a dollar figure that can't be figured out where it came from, what happened here, where's this one at, and this didn't happen. And honestly, I can tell you, as a council member, every time I hear that, it just doesn't make me feel comfortable. But every time we pull the layers, we find out, especially through Plant Moran over the years, that there's just not enough good systems in place.
Right.
So having somebody working in both departments might be the conduit to make things work better and maybe put better systems in place. I don't know what position it's going to be.
Well, that's what we're dancing around trying to consider, because you're absolutely right. The two departments need to merge together, and they need to be able to work together as opposed to independently. And we have realized that has been the hiccup, and the policies or the procedures
Or lack of
forward,
policies.
lack of policies isn't working. So if we could have somebody that is in both, that has more of an accounting understanding.
Yeah, accounting, I think, would be almost a must.
Definitely, because, it's accounts receivable and accounts payable. So we need to have somebody who understands both, and that could go from both places to actually push together and make these policies and procedures together so that we can connect.
If I may also take it a step further, not just in accounting, but municipal experience
That would
is
be
really
awesome.
important. And again, this to the point, and I'm going to reiterate, when you have experienced staff that goes out and they have this extended time off that they've earned, right? Because that's what we do. We keep giving them time. Their work, either somebody else, like I cross-train in my department, somebody steps up to do their job, well, guess what happens to their job? And then it's just a trickle down. And then that work, somebody's work is going to sit undone for that week period, or however long it may be, which is unacceptable. That's not how you manage. It's not how, it has roll-down effects. It affects everybody, every department. That has to be changed, and that's why we're asking for this position.
Sure. I just thank you so much, Councilor Chen. Thank you, guys. Sorry for coming in a little late. My two questions is this. The job that you're going to be opening up, will this be clerical work, or will this be actual CPA work?
Neither. We don't need a CPA, but we do need someone with accounting background. So I would say more, if you wanted to give it a title, an accountant.
Okay.
And I would suggest that it would be a salaried position, because we do need somebody who has qualifications with an education.
No, but my last thing, I'm sorry, Council
Okay.
Chair, where does the barrier stand though? One will be working for either the mayor's office and administration, or will this person be working for the treasurer's office and administration? So,
They're going to be working for both the comptroller and the treasurer. So it would be a split position.
who do they report to?
Both. Both,
Either
It'll be
or.
half and half.
yeah.
But with that, you all set? So
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking same.
Like it's
Yeah,
an at-will job. What if you guys, let's just say the comptroller doesn't like her or him, but the treasurer likes him or her, or the treasurer doesn't like him or her, but
Well, that's a debate between the two of us then that we have to, come across. It's not a matter of liking you, it's a matter of can you do the job? And then you put aside your personal feelings, which we've talked about this many times. I use the basketball court as an example. I don't have to like you, but man, you're my best friend when we're on the court, because I need you down there to get that ball in the basket. Outside the court, I don't care. So you have to be able to put your personal feelings aside. Now, when we go in and we actually interview this person, that's something that's actually going to be talked about. And if there's a chemistry and there's a understanding between us, and you can get along with this person and they understand where we're coming from, we don't
So as
care.
I've always said in my business, you don't have to like each other. I say that to
Right.
people on my team. You don't have to like each other. You just have to
Right.
respect each other and treat each other with
Absolutely.
respect. That's it.
Absolutely.
No more, no less.
Absolutely. And don't cross,
And you don't have to be besties.
no.
You know,
No.
no need to grab a sandwich after work. Just
Right,
you know.
Yeah.
right.
So it's really about getting the job done.
yeah.
And being professional
Yeah.
and having the expectation. And we're working very well together. So, Councilman Baydun, I appreciate the question. It's a very good question. But I think, I only see good coming of this, really benefits.
Okay, so a concern I would have then, so now when we say accountant, and I get it, and honestly, I would think that almost everybody's got to be either accounting or pretty close to an accounting degree. But with that being the case, any accountant you hire, based on my general knowledge of it, I think would probably be minimum 90, 95 on up, if I'm not mistaken. What would they be at nowadays?
Max over here has an accounting degree, and I can tell you right now, we're not paying him $90,000.
I think Mike deserves
If-
90,000.
He does, definitely. But if you're talking a CPA, yes, then you are in
Okay,
the
maybe that's what I'm confused with.
$90,000 range.
Correct, okay. So with that being the case, so let's say 60, 70, 50, whatever it happens to be. So with that being the case, I'd be a lot more open-minded about it, although I'm open-minded about it now, would be the situation with Plant Moran, because we're still paying them a high amount of money. So if you came to me, it'd be a much easier decision if you said, okay, well, they're gonna be out in, 2-3 months, but we're bringing in an accountant to split. That's a little bit more open-minded about it, if you wanna call it.
I have said numerous times that I am working toward getting Plant Moran out of here within the next 6 to 9 months. I do have a placeholder for them in the budget for the next year, but I am not expecting to use them for the next year. That's why I'm trying to build the team up so that we can actually start declining Plant Moran's work and getting it more in-house. Now, if you want to go the other way and you want to have everything outsourced, I have a PowerPoint presentation to show you how much that would actually cost the city. And I don't think that you would benefit from that as much as you would if you had it in-house.
I got one more thing,
Go ahead.
Council Chair. Kind of just like, I know Council Chair said this last time we spoke about the comptroller's office. Just seems like we're spending tons and thousands of dollars into this comptroller's office. And there's just been bandages over bandages over bandages. We don't know how to fix this issue. Why don't we use somebody like Max Mahdi, who is, comes from an accounting background? It seems like he's, hitting the ground running. Before we actually hire somebody, because what I don't want to see us doing is still have Plant Moran hire this accountant that's being split between you two. Why don't we have him oversee this position? And that when you're able to bring somebody in, he can explain to whomever that is, because you're going to be too busy. She's going to be too busy. If he's still working for you, let him be able to oversee what the issues are. And so that when we hire somebody in, the transition is actually, he's able to present that actual transition. Even if that means, while Plant Moran is here, he's helping, foreshadowing them, letting them leave, figuring out what this new position and title needs to be. Because the comptroller is not going to be able to really focus in on and do it. And neither is going to be the treasurer. You guys probably got a million things going on. have him oversee what's going on. As soon as Plant Moran is gone, we're more than willing to hire another employee that's be able to split between the two. But what we can't keep doing, and at least for myself, is how I feel is, we can't spend $1 million on Plant Moran and say, but we also need to hire an accountant that's going to be split between the two. Why are we playing Plant Moran?
I totally agree with you, and that's exactly what our plan is. However, we can't have
Well, I'm using Max as an example. I'm using Max as an example.
And I understand, and I would love, and we've talked about getting in a intern, okay? Just to start working toward these things that we need to be cleaned up. We can't get these things cleaned up without the help. We have Plant Moran right now. We can't get them gone until we have people that can replace them. So this is a twofold. Yeah, you're going to spend money up front, but in the long run, you're going to be decreasing that. If you say, wait till Plant Moran is gone and then bring someone in, well then, how do you know what Plant Moran did?
I know, well, that's why we have the comptroller and our deputy comptroller and Max and everybody else that's in that office that knows what's happening. I'm not depending on one other individual that's going to be split between the two to determine what Plant Moran did.
Right.
But what I do want you to know is before you started here and when we were at Riverside having our meeting, we were told by Plant Moran, the administration, our former corporation counsel, that Plant Moran was going to be here for 6 months, max a year. We're now budgeting for our second or potentially third year. We spent close to $1.2 million on Plant Moran Gap, guys. That's a lot of money. You know what we could have done? I could have hired 5 more employees and still been under that $1.2 million.
I agree.
So and you have to get where we're coming from. We have fiscal obligations to the city. We have to be fiscally responsible. We are not being fiscally responsible with having Plant Moran Group or Plant Moran Gap here with us. We're just not being fiscally responsible.
I agree. However,
so we have to be very, very sensitive on how we're going to be continuing to spend more money towards the comptrollers and hiring more people.
However, you've had one comptroller for 9 months. You haven't had a deputy, and we just got someone in here 2 weeks ago.
I heard the deputy left maybe 5-6 months ago.
She was only here 2 months. She was here for 2 months, and then she left.
She left about maybe.
And it's not your fault, by the way. I want you to know I truly feel comfortable with you. I think, Mrs. King, you're doing a great job. I truly do. I think you're really transitioning into a good team. I think you got the right mindset. But I also have to make sure that we know that we're stepping on eggshells here. $1.2 million in the comptroller's office. That's a lot of money.
Okay, so what do you recommend? We keep Plant Moran and we keep going the way we're at?
I think right now our main focus should really be finding. I'll put, or maybe the council chair. Somebody can put a resolution that's saying in 6 months they're no longer going to be with us. It's on you guys, the professionals, because I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant. This is your guys' expertise.
We're telling you what we need in order to get rid of Plant Moran. And I've already put a time limit on it within the 6 to 9 months. I can't do that by myself.
Can you tell me, if we bring you somebody, can you tell me 6 to 9? I'd like to see it closer to 6. Because we could say 6 to 9 and push it to 9 or 10.
You know what? It just depends on how long it takes to get somebody in here. We just interviewed 3 people, well, actually 1, because only 1 showed up for a deputy last week. The week before, we interviewed 3 people for a deputy. Now I have to go in, and they actually have to do the civil service test. Then it has to go into whatever phase it goes in after that. So I'm not going to be able to get somebody in here for probably at least a month. Before I can, and then I have to train them.
And I'm glad that we're having this communication.
I am too, because this is what you need to hear.
It allows the residents to know that this is why we're having these issues.
But I see the councilman's concern though, because if you look at it from another perspective, and I'm not necessarily saying this is the case, but just human nature.
Right.
If anybody's in your position and they got Plant Moran there helping them out, let's face it, at the end of the day, they do help out, okay? So it's much easier to just keep Plant Moran rolling while, as the councilman says, the money's just stacking up.
No, I don't want Plant Moran here to keep rolling. That is a lot of money. And on top of that, they don't want to be here. They're up here doing the type of work. They're CPAs. They don't want to be doing bookkeeping entry-level work. And I don't want to say entry-level, but they don't want to be doing deputy work, and that's what they're doing right now. If I had somebody in-house, it could be I can use them in a much broader sense as opposed to just what Plant Moran is doing.
What are the credentials that are needed to hire a deputy?
I need someone with an accounting education. I don't necessarily need an accounting degree. I do need a bachelor's degree in business administration as well as supervisory skills.
Can you do us a favor and maybe publicize that? on social media?
I'm sorry. She wants to go back to the treasurer's budget.
Respectfully, we're getting into the comptroller's
Yeah, we are.
budget.
We are.
And this is for the treasurer.
I know, but
No,
we're just having conversation here, because
But
Plant
his is
Moran's gap is-
specifically in regards to hiring an additional accountant.
Yeah,
Okay, let me have the councilwoman, go ahead.
Yeah, Mo, I think you missed the part about the problem being they can't get the work done when people who have built up time off take it and are gone for a while, stuff sits on a desk. So we can't get rid of Plant Moran until we get the work working. And I see their point totally, and I think we can do it faster getting rid of Plant Moran if we have some extra help. And if they can shift between the two places, I see it as a really plus.
And if I may, thank you, Councilwoman Breyer, because that was my point. I don't know if you were here when I talked about that. I talked
I
about
heard
like
it.
the longevity and all the time off they have. And when somebody's off, we cross-train, and somebody steps into that role and does that person's work that's off, but they still have their work. And somebody's work isn't going to get done because we don't have a person, an actual body to do that workload. And this is really important because I also have, in the next few years, my deputy will be retiring.
Okay.
And this is a preparation for that, being prepared, being proactive, especially with creating tax rolls. And that's why I said municipal experience is going to be important, in my opinion only.
okay. Council Chair, I got one
Thank
last
you.
statement. Thank you. And I'm sorry, guys, I want to have the open dialogue. From, I
Good
believe
copy,
about
good
3 or
copy,
4
it's
months
good.
ago, Madam Treasurer, mistake me if I'm wrong, you said that you no longer need Plant Moran gap in the treasurer's office because you guys are fine. I was also told about a year and a half ago that there's gonna be about 3 or 4 people from Plant Moran Group that are working in City Hall with us. And that's why it's such a hefty bill that they're charging us. And one of the issues that we were going back and forth was that, if somebody got injured here, I remember we were going back and forth with the
Right,
Corporation
right, right.
Council.
Who's
and it was
liable?
And who's liable, because we were expected from Plant Moran Group to have 3 or 4 employees working amongst the comptroller and the treasurer's office. About 4 months ago, we were told that the treasurer is no longer in need of them. We know what we're doing, we're fine, we don't need them. The comptroller, they're only gonna focus on the comptroller's office, and they came here and they spoke to us. Now I'm being told, well, people are taking off, yeah, we're cross-tracking, but we're delayed on our work. So like, it's just, when I hear something, I take it to the heart, I put it in the back of my mind, I remember it. Now I'm being told something else. Look, guys, I'm for it, but I just want to have an open discussion on this.
Okay, so if I may, Plant Moran was brought in for certain skill sets to do certain scope of work. That scope of work, the treasurer's office is not using or does not need. In fact, they helped me with my land bank reports. We're all good, I'm all trained, that's done. That's why I don't need them now. They helped us with the forms, the communication forms between departments. That has been implemented beginning April 1st. That's, I think, has gone very well. So therefore, again, talk about scope of work. I'm talking about, it's like apples to oranges respectfully, because I'm talking about a position to support when staff is off, vacation, gets ill, whatever the case may be. It doesn't, and that wouldn't be Plant Moran's job. They would not do that work for us. They do not do that work for us. They've never come in and replaced any of my staff members. When my deputy was off for something extended, I didn't have anybody other than my existing staff.
Okay, thank you.
And that, again, my concern is about workflow, because what doesn't get done, what sits for even for a day or two, impacts other departments, and we don't want to operate that way.
So this one individual is going to take on the role of 2 departments, and anything that is being slowed down is going to be held responsible by this one individual. I just want to make this very clear, because I'm asking it on the record. We're expecting that one individual accounting that's going to make about $60,000 a year, right? Okay. Aside from your deputy controller, it's going to be the one that's supposed to pick up the work for any person that's off at either.
Okay, let me rephrase this. We are trying to build a team to work through the comptroller and the treasurer's department. I'm not going to say just one person. I'm going to say 3. We've got a deputy, well, actually 4, counting your deputy. Okay, so it would be an entire team that would be working together to try to clean this process up and get it to run smoothly. When the treasurer says she doesn't need Plant Moran in her department, not necessarily. However, there are things that have been done in her department that's still being done by Plant Moran to get the flow going so that things are properly run in the comptroller department. There is processes that are broken. We can't fix them until we sit down and actually say what is going where. One of them is we're closing out bank accounts. Okay. Next, we got to go through another process and say, where is this money being posted, and is it being posted to the correct accounts? There's a lot of moving parts in this. It's not just one person. Okay. It's going to be 4 or 5 people actually working together in both departments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. And I meant no,
So we gotta wrap up treasurers, unless somebody else has additional questions, we gotta go to the next one. So thank you very much, Madam Treasurer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Controller. We'll go ahead and go to DPW, and I know Mr. Deep was just in.
He will probably be back. Has he got all the rest?
Yeah,
what page is DPW?
Huh?
What page?
DPW is 25.
How many are we doing today, Council Chair?
5. They're all simple. So page 25.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm doing this
Okay.
solo or what.
Huh?
I don't know if I'm
Well,
doing this
let
solo.
me,
We can start it.
let me go ahead and,
I'll even show
We
him.
can start it.
let me call it. Go ahead and get started. Let me call it.
Max, how you doing, buddy?
25.
My opinion, I take you in, make that your role, let you oversee everything, give you a bigger raise.
The backup is that I'll become the
Should I stay because was with budget? Are you going to have public questions? It should stay? I was just thinking of that.
Public
Like
questions?
questions, like.
No, if you want to maybe log in via, he's coming.
I call him.
If you want to, you can come in via Zoom if you'd like, but typically, no.
I didn't know, I just want to make sure I was available.
You did a great job, thank you.
Thank you. Good questions, by the way. Good job.
Thank you. By the way, I put on my suit jacket today, I said, whoa, it's hot.
Yeah.
It's casual Friday. Oh.
Yeah, very
Dave dressed up. He's got it covered.
I did not.
They're coming in. Hi, guys.
Okay, so we've eliminated, as we've agreed, we've eliminated DPW, and at this point. See, you weren't here for the, yeah, you weren't here for the vote, so that's
You
it.
wanted me to do it. I didn't know how well it was going to go.
All right, we have our DPW director here, Robert Conrad, and our city engineer, Ali Deeb. They'll be, I believe it's mostly Mr. Conrad that'll be presenting. And this is DPW Department of Public Works, page 25.
Yeah, page 25.
What does page 25 look like? Is that,
It says 25 to 58, so up here it'll say 25.
So Director, the way in general we've been doing this, which I think,
It's page 1.
I think in general works best, you tell us about your major asks, in other words, major asks different from last year. And then a lot of the ones in the middle of the budget, these are the same ones that pretty much stayed pretty consistent. And then we'll see what questions city council has, and then we'll go from there. Instead of having to do them line by line. Okay, so start with just your general presentation, your general major asks this year, and then we'll go from there. We'll go with questions from council.
so basically, most of the budget requirements that I've asked for are 3-year averages with a little bit of a bump from, for things like some of our newer material costs, our fuel costs have gone up considerably, so I asked for a little more in those, but otherwise they're for the most part a 3-year average. The salaries and benefits, again, I don't have much input in those. I mean, those are primarily, I give them our full-time employment numbers, and I mean, those numbers are pretty much supplied to me by HR and the comptroller's office for all of our benefits and salaries.
And for those controller, these are the ones with the projected 5% increase?
That's correct.
So the 753 includes the 5% increase?
That is correct.
For how many employees?
For highway,
5% increase for how many employees?
highway 2, 4. $14. So yes, 14. That includes vacancies as well. Those are full-time employments.
Now, on the city grass cutting, I had a little question on that. That went from amended budget 75, but then so far our projected activity, this is the one right in the center there, item 818.100. This year, we spent 85,875, or projected to spend by the end of the fiscal year. Then we're back at 75,000 recommended budget. Do you know the main purpose for the change in that? Because I'd like to assume that the city grass cutting is not gonna change much.
I guess the projected, that's what our contract amount is, the 75,000. So, the projected increase for this year is due to additional cuts that come up that we have to address, that aren't part of the
Original contract?
the original contract with Artistic. So, we get requests to do some additional cuttings or cleanup of some, areas that weren't part of the original contract, and that's where those extras come in.
Okay. And the second question I had, I have three questions. The second question I have is in regards to capital outlay. I noticed you asked for nothing. Or you got nothing.
I got nothing.
You got nothing. I need to rephrase that. You asked for 245, but you got nothing. So, from my perspective, I just want to get a clarification as to, because that's a huge, obviously, gap and difference. What was it that you felt you needed? Because it's something I'm going to present.
So we're down to one tree truck right now. And also our, they call them grappling trucks. They're the smaller trucks that pick up the larger logs and put them in a dump body for them. Our newest one is a 2007. It's struggling. The work that needs to be done now is repairable, but it's, becoming costly to keep maintaining these vehicles. So, there's two primary pieces of equipment that I'd like to fix, one or replace, either a bucket truck, so we have our second bucket truck for the tree crew. The one that we're using is, is our second one, but it is, I think, a 2007 or 2009 as well. It's up there in age. When we had the ice storm, they were actually both down. The one is pretty much, the boom's unserviceable, so it's basically just a chipper truck for us.
Okay, so I'm glad I asked this question then. Because we get, obviously, some complaints about garbage as council members. We get some complaints about snow plowing. But I don't know about you guys.
It's the most
but I get a
complaint
lot
I've
on
received.
trees. I get a lot of complaints on trees, tree trimming, tree cutting, bad tree. I know most recently you were dealing with one, and I know you emailed me. I haven't read the email. I know you emailed me today, but it's consistently, these are things that residents are very concerned about. And so now I'm more concerned because I would like to give you some of that capital outlay to do what needs to be done if we can do maybe not the right word is bigger job, but just accomplish a lot more in terms of tree cutting, et cetera, because that's a service that a lot of residents really want. And I hear it a lot. And I see it also as a realtor. I'm driving through different streets. A lot of our trees need trimming. And when I compare it to a lot of, or some other cities, I should say, I think, I don't want to use the words we're dropping the ball, but we're behind the 8 ball on that. So what would you need to make that service better, roughly? I know you need more employees, obviously, too.
Yeah, that's kind of our issue is, each week, we, maybe do only 1 or 2 days of tree work, because we have to sweep as well. We have to fill potholes as well.
Snow.
I mean, some of that stuff we can split into 2 crews and do sweeping and tree removal at the same time. But the tree trimming and tree, especially the tree removal is more labor intensive, requires more people. So, I mean, I am, would benefit from more staff as well, but I mean, there doesn't seem to be the room in the budget for that. But basically, the equipment that we would be using would be just to assure that, I can keep the current staff going, in the event we have a catastrophic failure with our current tree truck, we're gonna be down completely.
What about subcontracting it?
We do already have.
No, but more subcontracting.
I mean, we fall into labor union issues when we start subcontracting out too much of our stuff. I mean, right now, the stuff that we subcontract out doesn't typically become a union issue because we're letting the contractor do work that is too, it would be difficult for us to do. Maybe a larger tree, that we would have a hard time falling and cleaning up after. So, I mean, right now, we don't have those issues.
But see, my concern is this. Sitting at the kitchen table, Kevin and Julie don't care about our budgets, don't care who we're subcontracting, they don't care about any of that stuff. They don't even want to know how we're putting it together. All they want to know, and I'm not blaming you, I'm telling you, I as a councilman am willing to provide more money if that's what you need. Joe Public wants their trees trimmed, and here's the thing, even if it costs the city more money, they're still gaining. Joe Public is not only because of the beautification of their home, but it raises their property value, which means at the end, they're gaining too. But people want a nice looking city, and I just see too many trees that are left untrimmed and practically let go. So if you could relook into that, obviously today's not the final budget day. Speaking for myself, I'm open-minded about additional funds towards that.
Council Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Council Chair. And I swear to you, the only thing I have on here is 440-820-0000. That's tree trimming. Nothing else about here have I questioned. We have been consistently at $82,000 to $90,000 from the past to where we are today. We are still at the same exact thing. In every conversation that I've had with Mr. Deeb, with our DPW director, have been about trees. I don't think I've called you guys about anything in the last 2 years. And paving. However,
paving would not be DPW.
Yeah, well,
The trees
somewhat.
mess it up.
But I want you to know, we're at 90,000. We're still 3 years behind. We have 300 people still on this list that continues to stand at a standstill at 300. I mean, there are trees I believe me and you spoke about last October. I'm being patient, but I swear to you, yesterday I pulled up on a house on Simone. Like, I looked at me and said, the tree that I told you about last year, I said, we're still at 300, you're at 299. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say, but what I will tell you is, we're not going to amend this budget. We're going to give more than $90,000 to tree trimming. And if it means, and you said it extensively, if we can't do the work, why would we be violating labor laws if we can't do the work? Then we should be subcontracting these things out. And if anybody wants to take us to court, please do it. I want them to take us to court. I will be the first one to say, yes, I'm the reason for that. It is not okay for the residents. Look, there's three things that residents want. They want their streets looking nice, they want their trees trimmed, they want their garbage picked up.
And safety.
I mean, and safety. But when it comes to the DPW, there are 3 things that residents want.
Yeah.
That is it. And no disrespect to anybody here. No resident, let alone a council member sitting up here, should be waiting 2 years to hear back on a tree being trimmed or being cut down. No way. Because I know that there was a tree that was trimmed down because of a violation of a road, and within 30 days it was brought down. 30 days. And the tree was live and it was healthy and it was okay. But according to speaking with the DPW director and the police department, they told us that within 30 days, if somebody felt like it was obstruction of vision, and it was, somebody got into a car accident within those 30 days, the city would be liable. Well, guess what? People are calling us about their trees. If this tree falls on somebody, when does the city become liable? They've reported to an elected official who reported it back to DPW. Those are just as severe, guys. These trees that are dying need to be resolved. These overlarge trees that are destroying the infrastructure of our city, that are destroying our sidewalks, that are destroying our roads, that are destroying our pipes, we need to address these things.
Also, sometimes the assessment seems to be off, because I got a guy in Fairwood that's called me 3 different times in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. He's had 2 or 3 limbs, major limbs. I went personally looked at it, drove by just to see it. It's major limbs that have fallen off, but yet in the assessment, he's always being told, no, it's a healthy tree. And that's concerning too, because then if one of those limbs falls on someone, God forbid, and it's been documented that cities checked it 3 times and cities said it's healthy, and it could be because of lack of enough laborers. That's why me personally, as I told you, Julie and Kevin sitting at their kitchen table don't care about our budget. They don't care about anything. All they care is the work is not being done. And it's not because of you guys not doing it. I just don't think you have enough help to be able to get it done.
So let's subcontract this thing out. There's no ends of what's
The
about.
line item that you're speaking of, 820, that is our contract tree removal.
That's it?
That is our contract
That's
tree removal
removal.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, removal. Guess what? Let's
And
up that.
trimming. I mean, they do trimming for us as well, but I mean, they primarily, do removal and stumping for
With
us.
respect, Director, that's not enough.
I mean, I do not have a problem if you want to increase that.
I do want to increase it, but what I don't want to do is increase it and still have a list of 300 for another 3 more years. We have, for 2 years, I've been told that there's a list with no plan.
There's not a list of 300 for removal. There may be a list of, 200 for trimming or something like that, but there is not
Trimming.
a list of 300 for removal.
There's a long list for trimming, yeah.
I mean, our biggest list is for trimming, and a lot of the trimming, I mean, they're category 2s, category 1s, they're not.
Regardless of what they are, they need to be trimmed. We shouldn't be waiting people 2 years to trim their tree. No ends and buts about it.
I think right now we just handle emergencies, but what the councilman and myself are referencing
Okay.
is a resident should have a right to have just a nice looking, well-trimmed tree in front of them. It may not be dangerous, it may not be falling off or broken off, but they just need something nice and presentable, and I've seen it in other cities. Okay, we got Councilwoman Nancy Breyer, go ahead.
I know that we're behind on trees, but part of it is the equipment and the help to do it.
But that's what I'm saying, I'm open-minded.
I want to compliment them on the fact that the last few months, I've seen more done than ever before. And during the storm, you guys were fantastic. I really appreciate what's been done. And I want that to continue, but I have 2 other items. For instance, the emergency storm. We're projecting 150,000, we're recommending a budget of 15,000. Why is there such a difference there?
I guess because you don't know what emergency storm is going to entail. I mean, basically, if we could go through a season without any storm damage,
Yeah.
we might make a big dent in our tree removal and trimming list. I mean, we spend, probably a month or 2 every year on emergency storm removal. I remember we had the one last June, the beginning of June.
100-year storm.
It took us like almost 12 weeks to catch up and clean up from that one. And then we had the 2 storms this winter
Yeah,
here.
the recent ice storm.
Which has taken us probably another 6 or 8 weeks to catch up on. That's a big chunk of time that could be put towards, tree removal and tree trimming.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. You need more money.
And, so I mean, the emergency storm, I mean, I guess I put a placeholder in there of 15,000 so we have something, I don't want to plan for doom and gloom, but,
Right.
I don't want to soak my whole budget in something like, emergency storm and then not use it. I mean, obviously we can, reallocate that money and, do some budget transfers, but, I mean, basically, we know we're going to have some kind of storm this year. 15,000 is just a placeholder to keep
Right.
that open.
And my other question is the government pension, 440-718. We're showing a recommended budget of $198,067. We don't show what it was last year. Can you give me that information?
Again, that was under fringe benefits last year. We
It was a
pulled that
different
out.
location?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we pulled it out of fringe benefits and put it under government
right.
pension. Can I just say one thing regarding the tree trimming, though? That is outsourced, and we have budgeted 90,000 each year. Last year, we only used 46,000.
That's terrible.
So it's
problem.
not
That's
that the
the problem.
money's
Right.
not there. it's that it's not being used. Okay, so if we budget 90,000, we haven't used
Okay.
90,000.
So who would be the end game responsible person for that?
So,
Because it is being outsourced, so I guess it would just depend on what trees actually need to be trimmed.
some
Or
of that mon-
removed.
Some of that money that would have been used for, so Dearborn Tree, which is our contractor that does our tree removal, that 820 line, we use them considerably during the storm in June. So, I mean, and when we did use them for the storm in June, I put their money in emergency storm because that's what it was. I mean, this wasn't, something that we used them to, improve a citizen complaint or something like that. This was something that was uncontrolled by us that we had to react to. And that's why I want to keep track of those funds in emergency storm, because I had no choice but to spend them there. They were emergencies, they were damaged trees, they were twisted trees, they needed to be removed or cut and trimmed, so I mean, we would have used more of Dearborn Tree to do standard trims and removals for people who have requested things like that, but I had to use them a lot on the emergency storm. So some of that money spent in an emergency storm should have or could have gone to, the removal line item 820.
I want you to also keep in mind, guys, and DPW Director, Mr. Conrad, that the mayor also has the ability in a time of an emergency to use whatever it means necessary to protect the city. I believe, Council Chair, in 2020, we used $350,000 during the 100-year storm when everything was flooded. I think it was before you were here. Or maybe you had just started with us, but we were able to allocate close to 500 or 600 with FEMA supposedly getting us back. So like, in situations like this, we can use under the mayor's emergency money.
There's one more reason, Councilman, for tracking them that way, and I agree. So whatever efforts were used in conjunction with that storm, so even if you use a contract that was tree trimming contract, but it was storm related, tracking it that way help us when we make the case to FEMA for reimbursement, because other cities were able to.
Correct.
Get some money. So it is a good process.
But I want you to know, Mr. Dibin, you and I have had this conversation many times. The list needs to go away this year. It needs to go away.
That's a process issue. That's not.
The list needs to go away.
She did. Okay, so next is Robert Conrad, go ahead.
You mean Robert Constant?
Constant, I'm sorry, Constant.
Close. Thank you, Council Chair.
Starts with a C.
Obviously, DPW Director Conrad, I agree with both what my fellow council members said, but we're doing the budget, and we're all saying we have to make this a bigger priority. There's damage to sidewalks. There's lawsuits if somebody trips. Prominent leader of the Arab American community, I won't mention his name, had a huge tree that he had complained about for years, not in Dearborn, but here in Dearborn Heights, fall over, and it was front page news. I've lived in the area all my life. Our homes, particularly in the South End, are close together, and the perception is first and foremost that, the city government, that there's some secret list, or, there's a comical story with the mayor when he was campaigning, which I'll leave out, but we need to have this a higher priority. We've had a whole history of it. Was Dearborn Tree, it was another contractor, somebody that I grew up with, Q-Tag, Joe Karub, did it years ago. The particulars of it, that's for you and the administration to work out. But the trees need to get trimmed, and we just changed our ordinance. So we have more trees that are going to need to be trimmed. So that's number one. And I agree with Councilman Baydoun and Councilman Abdullah. I have seen some further progress, but we have to do something, amongst other things, some transparency, something, even if it's just for administration eyes, or there's something on the website so people can feel there's some progress. I mean, when Rick Snyder became governor, he mandated all cities to put their city budget on their website. There's something I can talk to Mr. Cooper, we can do, so at least somebody can say, okay, you know, my neighbor, Mr. Jones, they've been on the list for 4 years and they're getting close. You following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Director Conrad?
Yes.
Okay. One more ask. So I walked through and I said this before, and honestly, I'm not the end all be all, but I'm kind of concerned that nothing's been done about it. I walked through DPW about a few months back, and I had a concern that I was just blown away that, look, DPW services is probably one of the most important services that most residents see, whether it's snow plowing, whether it's, cutting grass on city property, tree trimming, tree cutting. These are all services that make the city beautiful, and we all want a beautiful city, obviously. And they all work hard. And then not to mention, in the middle of winter, I've driven by, sometimes and think, oh my God, in the middle of winter with ice storms and everything else, and they're underground trying to fix something underground. I mean, they do a lot of very important work in the city, and I commend them for that. But with that being the case, I was very concerned that they don't even have a break room, and I've asked for this a couple different times. And I know it can't cost that much. Where they take their breaks, I mean, honestly, it's like a third world country. There's just a couple chairs just laying around right next to a truck. And this is where some of our most important employees sit to eat, sit to maybe smoke a cigarette or whatever, have a pop or do whatever, or just to take a break. And I really think we should have a break room in there for them. Is there a reason why? Because even with a lot of them being handy, I'm sure they could even build it out themselves. I can't see something like that. And they don't want nothing fancy. Just 4 walls. It could be open on top. They don't care. But just something nice and clean. Right now they sit next to dust, dirt, trucks, oil, garbage. I would not sit there if my life depended on it, honestly, for a break. What is the status on that one? And I would like it for myself, the top priority, please.
It is something that we're trying to put back in the TIFA budget for this year. I mean, it's been in there before, but there's been other things that have come up, like our fuel island.
Because we budgeted for about maybe 5-6 years back. There was some money that came in for, and it was used for something else at DPW.
Yeah, and that last year it was in our TIFA allotment to do that, and there was other priorities that came up that we had to take that away from. That also had contractor issues. I think we now have a connection on a good design build contractor that can.
It doesn't even it can be something I can design.
It's
square.
Well, I mean,
listen.
It's something that's in the works. I mean, and I believe it's in our. TIFA has put that in, their list of things to help us out.
Can I tell you something? I'm just going to be blunt. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming you, because honestly, shame on our city. I'm going to say it straight up. Shame on our city that for 63 years, that's our DPW, or whatever, however long that DPW has been around, and we still don't have a break room. So whether it's 20, 30, or 40 years and no break room, I'm saying it straight up, shame on our city. So, but there's a thing that you know and I know, when there's a will, there's a way. Right now, I think the will is not in our department to put that in, and I would like to say it public, that should be it. These guys come in from working outside for 10, 12, 15 hours, whether it's cold or whether it's hot. Just sit down to be able to drink a Pepsi. They should not drink it next to garbage. And I'm not blaming you, because like I said, it's been there 30, 40 years. If you want to say it, if you don't mind, on the microphone, because otherwise they won't hear you on.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to say that it just added it to the budget that got approved last week.
Okay, so we're on to it?
Last week's budget from TIFA, it was added.
Okay.
And they approved it.
Can you keep us up to date on that?
Yeah, just, we added a lot of stuff to TIFA's budget.
Well, no, just keep us up to date on the actual down room that he's asking for.
See, because that's what creates a morale. If I worked there, honestly, my morale would be at the lowest, because I would feel disrespected, to be blunt.
Still more to it. To bring water and sewer into that area, you have to exit. It's not as simple as just.
Yes, it is as simple. You know what? Have portables. Have portables. You're from Lebanon. You ought to figure out how to do this.
I paid for a cooler.
Yes. But let's listen. At the end of the day, Ali, for people to have good morale, they got to be treated well. And again, it's not Director Conrad. That's been around for 30 years.
David?
Okay, let count.
I went after you said that the last time, and I checked, and I believe there may be 2 rooms. I only saw 1. And there was furniture given away from Richard Young. I went and offered a couch from Eaton Center to go to your place. They didn't want it. So I tried.
Well, but they want, again, they want a built-out
Well, I went on
drywall,
furniture.
four square wall, full walls.
It's in our plan. I mean, since I've been there, I have had allowed them to, rearrange our stock and how we store our stock, so that they have more room, kind of like a preparation for, the build out of, what we're going to do this year. So, they've made improvements that put us in a position that, we're gonna move in a direction that, will give them a nice sized break room, a nice clean break room. So, I mean, and I think it'll work. I mean, what room that they've cleared out for us is being used well by them. So, I mean, if, you wanted to use that as like our pilot, okay, that worked really well. The space that they've acquired or that they've, determined would be perfect for them is good. I think we're gonna actually be able to give them a little more space when we actually.
Director Conrad, can I get your word you're on this?
I am on this.
Mr. Dean just said they're working
But
it.
again, I was on it last year, and then our fuel island, went down, and I had to take, I mean, Tifa helped us out considerably. I mean, to the tune of like $100,000 to redo our underground storage tanks and make that certified again so we can use them. I mean, a portion, less than that was allocated to a break room before that happened.
Okay,
And
just promise me you're gonna do everything you can.
I promise you, if the funds are available, I will do it.
Okay.
If something catastrophically goes wrong and I have to pull it, I'm gonna have to renege on my promise. But if nothing major goes wrong, I mean, those funds are allocated.
Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman.
Again, I probably have the longest history next to my Councilwoman Nancy Bryant in the city. I worked for the city a couple summers, and Dave Buzz was one of the original employees, a South Ender. Amongst other things, there used to be a joke that the break room was at the Confetti Lounge on Pelham in Dearborn Heights for the DPW. Let me finish.
Okay.
And,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You wouldn't, but that, to Council Chair Dave Abdullah's point, there was a big problem with alcohol amongst the directors and different people in the DPW. That gentleman in particular was driving the street sweeper and hit the former council chair's brand new GM car, Elizabeth Aegis, and was discharged from the city. So a nice break room or something where they can go and eat and not have to go somewhere. When I was a court officer, there was a rule you couldn't be anywhere where alcohol was served, and I had the uniform, and the idea is that, so that, I mean, someone could still walk in or go whatever in their car, maybe a room with a flat screen TV, or for meetings also. It's obvious. That facility's been there.
62, I think, is the plaque on the wall.
Yeah, and they built the new South End Library, but I live within a mile of that location.
Okay.
That's it.
Next subject?
Yes,
Did
please.
you have anything else, Director, or?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Next subject, we're gonna go to page 19, which is building maintenance.
Okay. I guess one of the things that I have a little issue with is the salary line. I mean, that's kind of, I don't think that reflects our full FTPs for building maintenance, unless,
The 408, 506, it does seem,
because, let's see, building maintenance, I have,
and that includes Mr. Blackburn, correct?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, no, 10, let's see, wait, let me do this again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I have 11 full-time employments, and then I have budgeted in, or what I'd like to have is 3 part-time for the summer help. And 2 of those are vacant positions now, so, but I mean, that's.
Okay. So the 408-506 is based on historical as far as what the personnel budget is right now. What is in Paylocity, it is at 408-506. I can pull the information per employee if you'd like.
But why is there a drop from projected
Okay, we need
445 to 408?
Projected is always going to be higher because they're probably basing it on, like in March, we got 3 pays. And they're probably assuming, well, you're gonna go 3 pays for the next 6 months, when we're not, because March was just 3 pays, and then April, May, June would only be 2 pays. So that kind of throws things off too. Sometimes the projected isn't always accurate.
Right. So I had a question in regards to the capital outlay ask
Okay.
of 425, but then the get is 0, which is fine. I presume obviously there's reasoning behind that, but what was that? What would, I'm just curious, if nothing else. In terms of a building maintenance, why would you need almost $500,000?
We need a roof at the Young Center, we need new doors at the DPW, we have a couple rooftops here that are in bad shape. You know, there's just, I mean, there's a considerable, I mean, there's a few parking lots that, you know, may need some upgrades. I mean, there's, you know, there's, as far as when it comes to, most of those capitals outlays are for building and ground improvements.
But they may still come at a later time.
The only thing that, you know, could possibly come into play for equipment wise is we could possibly do with a couple new lawnmowers. But again, you know, that's gonna be less than $40,000 if we buy a couple lawnmowers. So, you know, equipment wise, I mean, I think, you know, we have a few trucks that we could replace, but we've done fairly well the last couple of years with, you know, replacement vehicles as far as our box truck, our stake truck. We've got a couple, you know, new snow plows for them for the last couple of years. So I mean, you know, we're in pretty decent shape for equipment wise that we use to do our jobs. But, you know, again, we need, you know, part of this capital equipment is, you know, to keep the air running in here, to keep the heat running in here. You know, these are old buildings and there's a lot of things that come up. So, I mean, some of the, you know, other departments like the library, they, you know, put in their budget, you know, which is kind of our responsibility, is the roof maintenance. I mean, you know, they'll put roof repairs in theirs, they'll put, you know, sidewalk repairs, or, you know, that they have some items in theirs, but this is primarily the stuff that, you know, isn't part of other departments, like, you know, the city hall here, you know, Young Center that may need some work.
Okay. Councilman, go ahead. Thank you, Council Chair. So, Comptroller and or Mr. Conrad, how much roughly for one additional full-time employee? So we've got the 408, 506, you know, roughly 70,000 for a full-time, or?
Are we talking for DPW?
Yes.
That would be a union employee?
Yes.
And that would just depend on what, where they're starting, like what's their classification. I don't know if they would be a clerk 1, clerk 2, clerk 3, and that could go anywhere from, I don't know, $25 an hour up to 40? Is that about right?
Labor's going up 21.
Okay, so laborers are at about $21 an hour.
If we were talking about getting trees trimmed and the director said he thinks that number is a little low, I would propose, so it's instead of 408, 470, you know, that number, I'm asking everyone, you know, instead of 408, 506, 478, 506. That's a drop in the bucket. That man will be a lumberjack professional. Hire him from the UP. That's all he
But I think
knows how
for
to
tree
do is-
trimming and tree cutting, it takes more than one.
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, again, this is building maintenance. I mean, they don't,
Okay,
I mean, they don't really
I'm
do-
looking at the two departments together, so forget building maintenance. Your bottom line for salaries, your opening remarks were, that number seemed a little light. That's what I just heard you say, correct?
For building maintenance line.
Okay,
We're in, you know,
building maintenance.
yeah,
Right.
we're in 265 now, right? On page 19?
Okay. Again, how much more, Director Conrad, do you think you would need for your department and building maintenance? Because Mr. Blackburn that's a union position. That's my question to you. A number.
I mean, I could benefit from an additional 4 laborers. I mean, you know, personally, the grounds around these facilities are ridiculous.
Right, I used to.
I mean, and,
So-
you know,
so-
we do the best we can trying to keep up with grass cutting and things like that, but, you know, with the staff we have, I mean, it's difficult to just keep up with the, you know,
I understand.
changing light bulbs and cutting grass, let alone.
I understand. Do you understand, you know, just roughly a number for a budget to increase the budget? Does anyone have an idea?
So you're looking for what, 2 new FTEs? Is that what you're?
I'm looking for what Mr. Conrad, to
Okay.
his comments, said the number seemed a little light, a number, an amount, how much additional, not,
I mean, I still have.
you would know, the two of you would know, not me.
You know, to be honest, I've never had full-time employment for that department.
Then part-time.
I mean, I don't really even know. I mean, maybe if I had all my positions filled, I would be okay and would be able to keep up. But I mean, I would think that, you know, an additional 4 employees would help. But then, you know, I think if I get an additional 4, you know, if I had, say I had these 2 vacancy filled and maybe 2 more.
I see.
I mean, that might help me better keep the grounds and things looking better.
You know, outside
But then
the
that
appearance
might-
of the city.
That might hinge itself into like, okay, I'm gonna need a couple more lawnmowers, I mean,
Right.
a couple more of these or that, I mean, you know, again, I mean, I don't really have a good grasp because I've only been here I haven't even been here 2 years yet, and since I've been here, I've never had a full complement of staff in any of my departments. So, I mean, I don't even really know what their capabilities
I
are.
understand,
If you could assess it, you know, for a future date,
Yeah, so we can increase that line, you know, the salaries. That's all I'm asking.
I would welcome.
okay? So next, thank you, Director, appreciate it. Next up, unless did you have something else on your end, Director?
I mean, that was my, you know, 2 biggest concerns is, you know, I just wanted to assure that, you know, we had counted for all my full-time employments, including vacancies. If, you know, I'm assured that we have that, I mean, and then if I could get an additional 2, I mean, that would be great, but I mean.
I'm all for it.
Budgeting 2 and actually getting the employees are 2 different things
I know.
sometimes. But
But,
I mean, I would welcome.
But again, that's the most important service that's provided to the residents that they see at the kitchen table. See, like the residents, controller, no offense, you know, they don't see the controllers and they don't see the treasurers and maybe they barely see the water department's end other than the bill. But you and your ladies and gentlemen do is what Joe Public sees every day in terms of their home. So this is a very important department to make sure that we have enough people in there that are providing the services that the residents need. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and go to, major streets, major and local streets. That's page 38 and page 39. So let's start with page 38. And who's gonna be presenting on this one? Is it you, Mr. Deeb? Or is it gonna be Conrad?
I mean, page 38 is basically our revenues from Act 51.
That is what it is.
Page 38 and 39.
Okay, so 39 would be your expenses.
Revenues and 30,
Some weight tax.
that's for people who get tickets. Dearborn has this, Dearborn unit.
Yep.
comes in and represents
So-
$1 million.
So, I mean, 39 is basically, you know, appropriations for our street improvements. Basically, I followed in suit with what we've done in previous years. We don't really, the revenues aren't increasing to the point where we can really change things too much. So, we're pretty much following in suit with what we've done for the past 3 years. As far as
They
our
have gone up
expenditures.
because of the state of Michigan projections on gas, with gas and weight tax. The activity from this fiscal year was 4.8 million. The budget is 5,225,000, so it's got a good, almost $500,000 difference.
Yes. So we are getting more funding from gas and weight tax.
Okay, well, that's not that much, $500,000 is not
Right.
that much additional to, and again, that's projected. If people buy less fuel, that won't be there. So, I think there's a little bit of a buffer in there about the amount that, that projected increase is.
Do you, both of you gentlemen, do you guys have the final assessment from the company that was hired that's gonna be assessing all of the streets? You know which one I'm talking about? I can't think of their name.
Pacer.
Yeah.
Pacer is done,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so you have a pretty good idea as far as the projected, cost needs for finishing the streets, correct?
Can you
Yep.
be closer?
Oh,
No,
oh,
just
okay.
like that. So Council President, what we have, in addition to Pacer is just a tool.
Right.
So we get an idea. We also have, just in general, for everyone's benefit, the pavement work consists of 3 separate things. One is, and I've heard comments regarding sidewalks, comment regarding sectioning the pavement, comment regarding street paving. These are 2 different things. So in general, there are maintenance work, which means sections like we did last year, both on the north and south, of the street otherwise. So Pacer is the tool that give us the rating for a particular section of a roadway. It doesn't take into account that, so if it's 1 to 10, but if you have a street rated 8, which is good, green, that doesn't mean that you don't have a pothole in
Small
that street,
section,
right?
correct.
It's an average rating for a street.
Right.
So what we broke this into is 3 different categories. Sectioning, meaning that your street is good, but you have some places that need to be cut and removed, and that's what we're doing now. Full replacement is obviously Sheehan, and that's not a candidate for sectioning because it would be more expensive to take one piece at a time and replace it versus the entire run. That's full replacement, that's a capital. So we're taking that now and breaking it down, and then you've got the sidewalk and smaller issues that are due to water main break on a perfectly new pavement, but you break the pavement to get to the water main, so you have to repair it, right? So these are the categories that we work on. So what we did is we also took all the comments and the feedback and the site visits, and we took a consultant with us and an inspector, and we drove the streets impacted, and we came up with a list of things. And then keep in mind, this is not a full, our needs far exceeds our budget. So if I take, and that's to put it mildly, so if I take major streets category, I have needs on replacement that is 2 or 3 times my budget. So what we did is we took the worst and we broke them down into a 5-year plan. So and the worst starts in 24, then we go on to 25, 26, and we broke them down and we put those in categories. That's on the full replacement. That's capital side. The sectioning, category 2, the sectioning is the stuff we drive and we mark them, and we have a contract in place that goes out and take a section and replace it that we did, throughout the city. This year, we're gonna start early. So last year, we had an issue with supplies, and it was labor and supplies, so we were late, we had a late start. This year, we're gonna start as soon as the plant's open, because I have a contract in place, I have people ready to go, we have the budget, so that's gonna start very soon. Last category will be sidewalk and the work that is related to water main breaks, which wasn't really, we didn't plan for it, it just happened. So I drive the city constantly, and I see things that the pavement was fine until we had a water main break, which then busted it. So now I need to include that. So the 3 categories are running hand in hand. In addition, we're coordinating all the work between departments. So Sidewalk, you guys just approved one contract for the entire city, so that's wonderful. So now we have one company we go to, any department or anyone who notices that, it goes through it. Next piece is the sectioning, which we also have a contract, we're going to use it fully. The only unknown now is the budget, how much money we have approved in the budget, and then the plants haven't opened yet, so I'm looking at the cost of material. Because if your budget is fixed and the cost of material increases, you're doing less work, obviously, because it's a unit price contract. We pay X per square yard. So we're working on that now. What we needed is the budget, but we do have a real good plan. And then we collectively, in fact, just came in today, included all the stuff we have, and we broke them into 5 years. So year 1, year 2, year 3. If we get more money, as Bob indicated, through Act 51 or whatever, if we are lucky and we get lower unit price than we expected, we might be able to do some of the work that is, pushed till next year. We can do it this year, but at least we have a plan. Now that plan is based on the PACER rating that you said, in addition to driving around. So we took that all into account.
And complaints, what have you.
It is a good plan. Hopefully.
Mr. Deep,
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Council Chair. My question to you is, I know last year we said that we were going to hold on to that money so that we can do bigger, larger projects that's more visible to the eye. Do you remember that last year? That money we didn't end up using last year. So then there have been an additional 2.5 million?
No, so now we're talking money. So in addition to the stuff that we didn't use last year, we intend to use it before the budget year is over.
But we were told we were not going to do any work on roads during our last budget hearing and from last year's work. We said we were not spending this money because if we only did half a street, it wouldn't make sense spending $2.5 million on just doing half of a street. We're going to save that and we're going to double it up for this fiscal year. So here we are this fiscal year, and no work was done with that $2.5 million when it said came out to roads. I'll pull up the video for you. And we had that former comptroller.
I mean, we did not do any construction work where we did a complete street replacement with storm drains and everything else. That was the work that we said we weren't going to do last year. We weren't going to do any street replacements last year. What we did do with that money is we did a considerable amount of sectioning, which is, taking a street that's, maybe in fair condition and moving it, to good condition. Or I think there was some that we even maybe took from poor condition and moved it into fair condition. But it's not, so I mean, you almost want to say that we did more work than we would have normally done.
So we spent that $2.5 million on, but we were told we weren't going to spend it because we wanted to double our work.
Well, you were told that we weren't going to do any major construction projects. I mean, there was a decision made later that we would do a considerable amount of sectioning. So, I mean, I guess, you are correct that, you were told that we weren't going to do any construction projects. But I guess what you weren't told last time is that we were going to do a larger than normal amount of pavement replacing and in the form of sectioning. So, I mean, typically the DPW, most of our sectioning stuff that's done through us is, replacing slabs that sunk because of a catch basin failure, maybe a storm pipe that has separated and needed repair as well, so we replaced pavement. But what we did this time is we took sections of pavement that were bad without any damage from, storm sewers or anything else, and, we went in and repaired those. Many of those were, high volume complaints from the residents. I think, Waddell was one of them that we had a considerable amount of complaints, and, so, I mean, we kind of did a lot of work. There was a lot of areas that, we made considerable improvements that were what I would consider high maintenance activities for us, as far as like we did a considerable section of Annapolis between Inkster and Beach Daily that, you know, we used to spend a considerable amount of time out there coal patching because, you know, the road was in poor condition.
Okay, I get it.
So
I wanted to know about that, because I thought about that all year.
Right, so
The money was used.
the money was used,
gone?
it just wasn't used to do.
You remember that?
I do.
A major construction, so, you know, rather than do a street from, you know, one end of the block to the other end of the block, improving all the storm sewers, you know, putting new drive approaches in like we've done on some other streets. I mean, I'm thinking around here, I think they did Fenton years before I got here in.
Avondale now, or Beach Daily.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, you people who've been here longer than me will know which ones we've done, you know, previous to me getting here. But I think the last one they did when I was here was, I think they were just finishing up Lila Lane when I arrived.
Yep.
And that may have been the last major reconstruct that we've done. So I mean, you know, that's what, you know, we kind of said that we were going to hold off, and, you know, the thought was, okay, we'll budget some money and then we'll do something like, you know, Beach Daily, you know, resurfacing project, or maybe another neighborhood that needs some.
Thank
but
you.
I mean, we use that money for sectioning.
Ollie, there
And
was-
I think we made, you know, I wasn't, I'll have to say, when Ollie presented me with the idea of doing a sectioning, I wasn't really in favor of it. But I think we did a lot of beneficial work for the residents, you know, with this sectioning program. You know, it's obviously not a path we'd want to go down every year, because then we'd never do any, you know, major reconstructs. But, I mean, I admit it is a good use of our
Two
funds.
streets that come to mind, I know Crestwood, own property there, I gave you that street before, Ollie. And then the street that's north and south, I'm blanking on the street, just on the east of it, connected to Crestwood. Both of those have pebbles and rocks flying all over the place every time you drive through there.
So we've updated the sectioning. Those are good candidates for sectioning. The street that you gave me, Evangeline, that is not sectioning. That, when we went and looked at it.
Evangeline north of Haas?
Yeah.
No, that is not third world country, that's like about 12th world country.
Guys, there's no concrete,
It's
pure
bad,
gravel.
it's bad.
When you get to a point where you have 80% of the street looking for sections, it'll cost you more.
Well, DPW did fix it, or patch it, but
patched
it's bad.
Temporary, those are
Yeah, it's
temporary
bad.
patches.
Yeah, a resident lost 2 tires, by the way. It would make his mother.
No, it's bad.
No, that's a full replacement. So we've looked at that but not all the way to, so Richardson.
As to Richardson,
Full replacement, and then we have sectioning. We already took that, and it's in the budget, so.
that's gonna be done this year.
Yes.
Is Crestwood on there, I'm curious?
Crestwood is not, as if it's 24.
That's an ASR one, that's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, that's it. That one is at 25, I believe,
What does that mean, 25?
for next year. So, you know,
Oh.
5-year plan. ASR, is what Bob is talking about, it's not a pavement failure, it's that ASR, alkali silica. That means it's got cancer. So the concrete is sick. It will have to be, that's a tough one. We have it's bad.
You can cut it out and put in a patch, but the cancer's gonna keep growing, and, you know, you basically just buy yourself a couple years until the piece that you didn't remove goes bad. You know, so I mean, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but, you know, to a certain extent, you have to tell the residents, you know, we have to let it get a little worse before we can do a full replacement and you know, replace it. You know, instead of trying to, you know, inject it with chemo every couple of years, I mean, you're better to, you know,
Perform the surgery.
cut the tumor out and replace it.
Ultimately, all these.
Any other questions from council members on major streets?
So that money's all gone, was my question.
Anything else on your end, directors? Okay.
Thank
Let's
you.
go ahead, thank you. Let's go to the next one, water and sewer, page 50. And last one, I should say. We still have the meeting with the controller tomorrow at 1. No, I'm messing. Feel sorry for the controller. She's had to be here at every meeting, yeah. And Mac too, yeah.
That's a good man.
I like the first column.
I guess, you know, when it comes to the water and sewer budget, I mean, I primarily rely on Plant Moran to put this together for us, and this is kind of their projections of where they think we need to be with water and sewer. I mean, looking through it, it looks pretty much on par with how things have been in the past. I think maybe a few of the things that I might have asked for are, some of our material expenses, like our brass clamps and fittings and things like that. I've asked for a little bit more money for those. Our fuel expenses, again, you know, to operate the department seem to be up maybe 20–25%, because of the increase in fuel cost. You know, I think so I mean, you know, other than those few things, I mean, asked for a little bump in overtime because of the amount of breaks we've had, but otherwise it's primarily just a reflection of what Plant Moran has.
Okay, so I have two questions on that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to address the water department, the water billing right now, or you want to do that separately, or how are we doing that? Okay, so let's start with the first one. Let's start with the easy one. I'll make it easy on you.
I'd like to start with the hard ones.
Huh? Let's start with the easy ones. So in water billing, I feel personally, in terms of customer service to our residents, we've not been providing it. And the reason I feel that we've not been providing it is not because the ladies and gentlemen that work there are not giving it their all. It's way, way, way less employees than it needs. So you've got, for example, if somebody needs a final water bill, they got a 2-week wait. It'll only be done once every 2 weeks. If somebody wants to speak with somebody in there, you could call. I get resident complaints all the time. You call and it'll ring and ring and ring and ring. And it's not because they're not picking up the phones. Because what they don't know is I went in there to talk to them a couple different times. Not only have they told me, but I personally was watching them. They didn't know I was watching them. It's not want to see, you know, because, you know, devil's advocate, you know, in your mind you think maybe somebody's just not picking up the phones. It was not a case of people not picking up the phones. It was the phones that are ringing off the hook. It's just one person to be able to handle the front desk and all the calls that come in. That, to me, does not have enough laborers in there, ladies or gentlemen, laborers in there. What is the solution to that? Is technology possibly a solution? Is maybe the new meters coming in maybe going to make things much simpler, from what I've been told by Sheila? But we definitely need, in my personal business opinion, if you want to call it, we need more employees in there, because when residents call and their calls are not being answered, that's about the worst customer service that you could have when nobody's able to answer it. So that's the first question. And the second one is going to be a little more Mike Tyson, but go ahead.
Okay. Regarding the phones that do ring off the hook on a regular basis, 30% of those calls are not water related. So we are trying to work with IT to see if we can't get something where they can actually go to a voicemail, press 1 if you want this department, press 2 if you want that department, and that will streamline the phones a little bit more.
When you say they're not for the water billing, who would they be for?
Mainly DPW, or sometimes it's for building. It's like a
Oh, so you're saying
that
it's
they're
water-related
calling, and
issue, but they're calling water billing instead of calling
Right.
DPW. Okay, that
Right,
makes sense.
right.
We get those at the DPW too. I think they just keep
At
going
DPW
from
asking
one
about their
department
bill.
to another until somebody
That's right.
answers the
That's what they're
phone.
doing. They want the tree trimmed.
So, I mean, yeah, we get, you know, calls for ordinance at our place. We get calls for buildings at our place, you know. The only place they never make mistakes with is the police department and the fire department. We don't get any of their calls. But I mean, any other department in the city, I mean, I think when people call a number and they don't get anybody to answer the phone, they just say, well, they didn't pick up the phone there, I'll try the assessor's
But for
office.
full transparency, on my end, a huge pet peeve of mine, I hate these, you know, for so-and-so press 1, for so-and-so press 2. And then when you press 2, then for this, press 1, for
Yes.
this, press 3, then you press 3, and then for that, press 7. I personally would be against that system, but that's me.
I understand that, and I think
I like
a lot
old,
of people
good old
would
school
be-
people answering.
I agree. Unfortunately, that's where society has gone.
Yeah.
We have gone to this.
I gotta agree with them on that.
I'm old
And
school, I hate that system.
understand. I would prefer to talk to a live person as well.
In a perfect world, it makes sense, Council Chair, but, you know, with the way technology and everything's moving, you know, you gotta listen
We
to
gotta
the
talk
phone
about
calls.
cost
Old world is
effective.
better world.
For English, press 1, habla español, marque
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And we gotta cost effective. Do we
So-
want to be putting somebody in there and paying their
So,
pension?
can you
Answer
put
the phone?
that comptroller for yourself and DPW director on your radar? I really think I really think they're short-staffed, in my opinion. And I've watched
We are
it consistently.
definitely working on that.
Emails they can't return in a timely manner, phone calls they can't pick up in a timely manner, final water reasons they can't do it in a timely manner. Again, not because they're not working hard, they typically have just one person in there.
Well, the other issue is that we've had people that have been left, that have gone on FMLA. And then we've had people that have left that department, and then, you know, it's that whole transition of trying to get somebody else in there to retrain them. And we've had 2 people on FMLA, unfortunately, you know, it was an emergency situation. So that, again, trickles the whole thing that goes around.
The next one.
Okay.
And this is not you, Director Conrad, or Ali Deeb, or Controller, but we have to address it. So the biggest complaint we get in the city consistently, our water bills are too high.
Yes.
And I get this, we buy our water from GLWA, and what they charge us, we gotta pass it on. But then we have a projection here, or an ask, or call it whatever you wanna call it, for an increase of 5.8% on one, and it's here it is.
0.5.
5.29% increase on one, and then on the second one, that's for sewage, and on the second one is 8.54%, for an average of give or take 7 and some change percent on people's water bill. So there's 2 challenges with that one. One challenge is when we get complaints on water bills, and I get them as a realtor, myself as a real estate agent, and I right away tell people to look at their water bill, because sometimes it's coming in for a 90-day period because we're short-staffed again. So people are used to they're used to a 60-day period water bill, then they get a 90-day period water bill, they don't notice that there's a difference in the number of days, and suddenly they're upset why their bill is so high.
Or you gotta check for the E that says estimated
Yeah.
water consumption,
Right.
because
Only
they're
later
so
on do a real
short-staffed
Yeah.
that they can't go out there, and so we're estimating
Right.
what this could
And the
be.
new water meters hopefully should help, but either way though, we have a major
those water
increase
meters?
here, somewhat of a major increase.
I'm down with those water meters.
That's not the solution.
But what can,
It's an enterprise.
so
Regardless, we're-
so what can be done about the water increases?
Can I just?
Yes.
Council Chair, just step back. In addition to what you said, yes, the high view is we buy water from Great Lake, we send our sewers to 2 different entities, and we have to capture that cost, and the users pay, right? Well, that's the high view. In addition to that, you also have the fact water meters are a small part of it. You have a system, a billing system, like currently, and we're working very closely with this lady to try to. So take sewers. Sewers are much higher in cost, sewer disposal, than water supply. So sewers is not going to be impacted by your water meter, right? That's your sewers. So the sewers are not metered. How do we pay for sewers, right? I'm on the committee for DUA, Downriver Utilities. So we have 2 parts of the city. One part, and it took me a little while to figure out because I've only been with the city a little over 2 years. So I don't know what we did in the last 60 some years, but we didn't have a system that tracked these things. We're creating a system. Example. So how do you pay for your sewers to the 2 entities? That's not me. So, the south end, Dartmouth South goes to Downriver. And the city of Dearborn Heights, along with 13 other communities, 12 plus the airport, communities, created that authority, Downriver Utility, when that authority was created and purchased the Wayne County plant. So a lot of debt service, and I have that in my Bible that I carry all the time, a lot of debt service was created as a result of this. That debt service is then being captured by the communities that use that system. So the original purchase, the mortgage payment, I call them mortgage payments because,
You like it.
you know, they're mortgage payments. I mean, they're broken up and divided among the communities. In addition, operating costs and then major improvement. So we're currently doing major improvements to that plant, all of which will be spread and added to the users of that plant. We're one of them. Now, how do they divide it? They divide it based on your percentage of use of that system. So they take the 13 communities plus the airport and say, okay, I need to capture your flow. So if I get 100 gallon, how many gallons of it came from Dearborn Heights? They rely on us to report that. We rely on Plant Moran to come up with these combinations. So I went and researched all that because I'm not really sure how they come up with these numbers. We came up with a suggestion, and I believe this lady just finished coding these things, code the users in the particular area. So if I have 38,000 and some change meters, how many of them are flowing to this place and how many are going to Wayne County? Because prior to the creation of the downriver utility, all the sewers went to Wayne County in one way or another because it was Wayne County, north or south. So we didn't have to worry about it. But when that utility authority was created, someone on our end should have done what we're doing now.
Absolutely.
You know, to say, look, guys, you know, we now need to split. And then the cost of these two entities are not the same. So you've got costs going to the Rouge Valley Sewer, RVSDS, Rouge Valley Sewer Disposal System, which is approximately 60% or so of the city. And then you've got the downriver. Both are different. You need to track them that way. Now, unfortunately, yeah, I'm an engineer. I'm not an accountant, right? But I'm acting like it now because I had to track it. So if I wanted to know what the cost is, you need to take all of these things and then add to them in addition to that. So we went and sold bonds in 2019 or 2020, $25 million to do CSO mitigation, right? And what did we do with that bond? We put that mortgage payment on sewer, water and sewer rates. So to me, so that also added to your debt service when it comes to billing because you need to capture all this stuff. So when Plant Moran look at all this, they're giving you what your rates should be to cover all these expenses because you sold the bond and the bonds were called revenue bonds as opposed to general obligations. So I checked with other communities. Dearborn. So Dearborn did CSO. How did you pay for the CSO? Oh, we didn't put them on the rates. They made them a general obligation bonds, totally different than revenue bonds. Why didn't we do that? I mean, you know, so there's a whole bunch of stuff. So now you know why we're constantly in fight with, with Eagle, because they want you to commit to the rest of the CSO with the same, which means $45 million needs to be added on debt service to water and sewers, which is absolutely not. I mean, we will be the laughing stock of, you know, so we can't do that. What we need to do now is clean up our process, find out what we didn't do back when that plant was created and the authority was created, and what we agreed to pay for, and then relook at all this. This is what we're currently doing. The first step is we coded all of our stuff. So what I need to do now in the next short period of time is we are going to examine our rates that we pay DUA, and I already told them that if I find out that I'm overpaying, I'm getting that money back. So they already know that. But see, they rely on you to do that. They're not going to come to you.
But there's still a projected increase effective July 1st, 23 of 5.29% for water and for sewage 8.54%.
That's the DUA.
So so if residents are already concerned about their water bills being high, and now we're going to get another increase, the question is
the only part that might help us is if we find out that we're actually overpaying, then we can take that money out of that increase and reduce it. So ultimately, what we need to do is find a venue. So if this is capital improvement, if the work associated with the plant is capital improvement, we shouldn't have had that being paid out of our water sewer rate. That's my opinion. That, you know, do what other cities did. They made it general obligation. You know, so Ford was paying Dearborn stuff as opposed to, you know, the citizen. We need to have.
When you say like, when you're saying, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
You go and finish, Council Chair.
No, that's it, go ahead.
Oh, quickly, excellent. I mean, it's good to give, lip service. Oh, we should have lower water bills, but there's the man right there, and you've been with the city, what, 2 years? And because what he's doing is he's auditing the numbers that nobody else in the system is. The downriver facility it was all Wayne County. Wayne County, when they wanted to balance the budget, just like they wanted to sell Warren Valley, they said, well, we're going to sell it to, and then we would have been a captive audience. Company could have bought it and said, okay, this year your water rates are going to go triple.
Right.
You say, and so, but that debt service for us to purchase that facility is now on our ratepayers' backs, and our professional engineer, our city engineer, LED, better than he's out doing Plant Moran and all the rest of them by auditing that number, and that's to eyeball, that's no small task. So very good.
Mr. Deeb, I want you to know, and
That's my Bible, because it actually breaks down the amortization payments for over the number of years.
The mortgage.
No, mortgage, but the reason, that's the true cause of why our rates are high. It's not that we buy and sell. Absolutely, we buy the water and sell it to citizens, but there is more to it that is driving that cost higher. And if you wanted to solve it, you need to go out there and determine what these things are. So first thing we do is don't commit to any more of these, like CSOs. I don't want to commit to any more CSOs. The next group of CSO that Eagle is pushing for us.
don't forget that was state mandated, so we were forced to.
Yeah, but
I'm going to do what Inkster did. They said to go away. That's what Inkster did. They told them to go away. You want to mandate it, pay for it. Simple. Because I can't afford another $45 million in my rate. I can't. So that's what Inkster did, and they walked away. So, I mean, yes, it is mandated, and I don't want to, harm the rivers or anything, but I need to be reasonable. Would you like your rate to double?
No, so that's the next thing. So real quick.
Go ahead.
I know that we've talked about for the last 2.5 years about these water meters. I'm just gonna, again, I'm telling you, for the last year, I stayed quiet up here, and I listened to what everyone had to say. And I said, okay, we're gonna give them a year. We were here 1 year with the water. Hang on, Mr. Deeb. We are told that we have to replace these, and we're going to use CSO bond, and we're going to put it on people's water bills, right? And we have to replace them because we cannot buy things on Amazon anymore to fix these, repair these issues. We are here 2 years later, guys. Mr. Deeb, 2 years, and we keep here. Hold on.
You're not listening to the cause. You sold $25 million to pay for them.
Time out.
How would you want to pay for them? How do you want to pay for them?
So now we're not getting them anymore?
How do you want to pay for them? I'm asking you. How do you
2 years ago, we said we were going to use them from a CSO bond.
Listen, the bond we sold, the $25 million for 5 projects, is running out of money at 3 projects. How do you want to pay for them? Would you like to add more to the rate of water sewers?
So then let's go back to what you said, the general thing to do.
So you want to do another bond?
No, you just told me bonds are terrible.
No, I know, but that bond was sold for $25 million for 5 projects. We're on number 3 and running out of money. Right. That's the reason why we didn't put that.
So we're overspending and we didn't allocate.
No, it's not overspending. It's the estimates plus the cost of construction. So the CSO, the one that we have currently underway, the 42, the one on Beach Daily, that was, when you sold the bond, you sold $9 million. That project is 12 plus.
So a lot of these, if you remember, when they did the estimates on how much it's going to cost me, we're not for the bonds. A lot of these were pre-COVID. But what's happened after COVID came in, labor is way higher, materials way higher.
I get that. I swear to God, I get that, man. But we were told close to $9 million to change all of our water meters. Okay, we said this on the record. Not once, not twice, not 3, but at least 5 to 6 times, guys.
I agree.
Look, we said this.
I agree.
And we cannot come back and look and say, well, we don't got money for it.
You don't.
Because every single person had an issue with their water meter. We are told today that we cannot fix water meters because they're so outdated. What is the solution then?
You don't have money to replace them. That bond money is depleted and on project 3. And if you put a project out, first the 9 million is now 12. And you're currently running that 25 million that you sold for 5 project is running out at 3. So you can put a project out on the street, find $12 million. And you see, that's reality. I can't take credit for what happened in the past. You did an estimate. The council chair is right. It was pre-COVID. The prices came in.
So you're telling me if things went up astronomically by $10 million? That's realistically what it'd be. If we broke down 5 projects on $25 million, you're telling me we've overspent by $10 million. Guys, that's a lot of money. $10 million is a lot of money on going up on labor and material. $10 million. $10 million is not something just you throw around. Housing is double. No, we're not buying homes, man. We're doing infrastructure work that is state mandated.
I'm giving you the true reality. This is what happened. You have $25 million in the bank to do 5 projects. You don't have enough money to
we have ARPA money. We have ARPA money.
Excellent point.
And you know what? I'm not going to tell you guys. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be vocal on this. We are not going to tell residents you're going to get a new water meter. We're going to figure out what's going on. Now we're going to say that, hey, you know what? We need to really look at the algorithm of where the piping is going and where we're paying. That's going to lower our, and that is not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed that where if it's going to DWA.
Neither is the water meter. That's not going to lower your cost. The water meter is not going to.
So why did we say that then in the beginning? Because we weren't having a proper water reading at first.
No one ever claimed that the water meter is going to lower your cost. That's not.
What was said at times.
We definitely were told
false readings.
Yeah, we were definitely told that there was false readings, Mr. Deeb.
Because they're old.
They're old and false, but the rate, the issue we're having with the rate is much larger than the water meters.
Look,
much.
So what is the ultimate goal right now? We don't have the money to do it. We're not getting new water meters. We're still looking at how these things are being amortized. What is the ultimate goal? Just keep raising our water rates on the residents? Absolutely not. That is not going to be the goal at least while I'm here.
All right, so here's the plan. So we have a plan underway currently. In lieu of adding money to that debt service, in lieu of going another with this, we applied to SRF funding. The reason for that application, which is why we have that public meeting on the 25th, that public meeting is SRF funding to get state money to replace one of the stuff that we were going to do under the bond. If I get the state money end of this year, I will do this. Then what remains of that bond, I will shift from there to do the water meters. That's the plan. So I will get to do what I promised to do without going to my citizens and increasing rate. The state already, we present that to the state. They love the project. So if I get the state's money to pay part of what bond, then I would be fixing that $25 million mess and then say, now I have enough money to do the rest of the projects without increasing anything. That's the plan. 25th, the state already gave us preliminary approval. They said that is a great project, it's qualified. That is under Clean Water Act because we qualify. And then we also have Drinking Water Act, which we also applied for. That's due in another month. We're going after sources of funds outside from our rates and budget. And this is something that I just got this guy to do roads. The city has never done any kind of a search for possible funding outside of our budget, and which is totally crazy. Roadway we always paid for. Why didn't you go after funding for roadways? Right. I don't know. We are now. So water sewers, we should have been after the state. The state paid for all the lead water line replacement. Dearborn got all 100% paid for by the state. We never got any. We never asked for any. So we are now. That's, in my opinion, without going back and adding taxes or rates on water, that's the ultimate solution. That's the one we have underway now.
I mean, but just one last thing. Mr. Deeb, I don't mean this on you. I want you to know that. This is my frustration because we all, including you, everyone in this room owes it to the residents, right? And you know, this is new to me. I didn't know we weren't moving forward with having or we don't have the budget now for the water meters. I didn't know that, and I know you're saying you're presenting to the state, but that's not a guarantee.
It is. It is, because they do it, state revolving fund is something that the state, so just like the roadway, we are entitled to some of these things. The feds pay the states, the state pays the county pays communities. You have never asked for assistance, ever. So now we are trying to get ourselves on the radar, so we are part of these things. So when we go to the state, why didn't we go to the state for SRF funding for clean water and drinking water before we sold the bonds? Well, that was before my time. I'm trying to fix something that was already started. That was in place. It was handed to me. It still has John Selmy on it when it was approved by council. And when I came to the city, the money was already in the bank. We sold all the bonds. We put the money in the bank. Go do the work. And I'm looking at, one, I disagree with the numbers. Two, I'm doing them, but I mean, you guys, you under budgeted. So now we have to find a way.
You know who budgeted that for us?
No, I don't.
Our former comptroller. I sat in the room with him.
But the money is in the bank. So the good part is if we, and it took a lot of thinking. This is not easy to try to get replenish that fund through other sources other than water and sewer rates, because that's going. So if you look at bill today, if you look at your water bill, that bond money is on your water bill as debt service. This is already figured in your rate. So we have to pay that. So if I increase this, I'm increasing your water service. And I don't want to do that. So I have to find a different way to fund the projects that I know are mandated without doing this.
Councilwoman?
Okay, I have three things. Easiest one, what time is that meeting on the 25th?
Mr. Ankrap, I think it was, 5 p.m.? The public,
And
the one that you
location.
just announced, the public hearing.
I believe it's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Location, yeah.
We've got,
With you just to confirm, just to make sure.
okay, I think we've got a budget meeting that night too.
Oh,
I think
No,
that's the
the,
tentative one.
I'm sorry,
the public hearing for the
is
CSO.
24th.
Oh, 24?
What's the date?
24th. The public hearing.
And it's at where?
It's supposed to be here, I believe. Bear with me, I'm,
Well, we'll find out later.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does. It's on there. It's already announced on our website.
24th
Okay.
at 24th at 6 o'clock.
6 p.m. Okay,
This place, right?
all right. And a couple other things. The Highland Park water. Is anybody going to get anything out of Highland Park?
So the last I heard, they stopped that, but they haven't figured out. You're talking about GLUA reimbursing us?
Right.
They haven't said that. But
We haven't given them any money.
no, they added it the first year they did. Yeah, we did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the reimbursement. I know they stopped paying, but the reimbursement is not clear yet.
Yeah, because let them go without and go to the state. We don't want to pay theirs
I
anymore.
agree.
Okay, and the other thing is, under 592-000-528.500, we're doing ARPA money. Are we spending 10 million of that last 14 million we've got?
No, that was last year.
Oh, that was last year?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, so it's not affecting the recent monies? Okay. All right, that's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. And again, an excellent job,
Mr. D.
Director Deeb. I spent many an hour at both Plant Moran and Phil McKenna's. Anyway, we're unique, aren't we, that we straddle two different, even Dearborn, so is it 40%? Because the former mayor, God rest his soul, was on the due, and then it was 19. I remember we all talked, him, Kurt Heisey, our other city, it was 19, now it's 14.
So until we have the coding in place, no one ever coded these areas. So it's an estimate. If you look at the map, 2080, but we never really measured them because sewers are not measured, right? There is no meter on your sewers. There's meters on the water, but not on the sewers.
Never thought of
So
that.
it was, the sewers are not metered. So when you go
Not
to pay, when you go to pay, let's say downriver, they will ask you to self-report, you self-report how much water you used, and then they charge you sewer for. So we already got them in my last 2 years to agree to not give us bills on a monthly basis. So what they're doing now, they're measuring, we give them a winter average. The idea was so I don't have to pay for irrigating, water your grass or fill the pool. So they agree. So what we do is we measure water sold in that DUA area in, the first 3 months of the year, winter average. And that will be the use, right?
Okay.
And that should lower us, one. And two, when we do the coding, and it's done now, we're going to know exactly how much water we sold to every household in a particular location. That will be a more accurate way of doing it.
Thank you, because, and we went through years ago, I don't think any of us were here, save maybe Ray Musket, with the library system. We had to pull out of the Wayne County library system, and several other communities did. Forget that it was libraries and not water, but it's a bigger entity. We'll talk after, but the punchline, and Councilwoman Breyer mentioned Highland Park.
Yep.
When I was a state rep in Lansing, the emergency manager, Kevin Orr, the city of Detroit, Highland Park, which is a municipality in the city of Detroit, they're slow on paying their bills, okay?
Right.
But that the Chapter 9, which was, and Kevin Orr and all that money spent, because what the end result was, and I could see it, nobody did any business anymore with the city of Detroit. The vendors, all they knew is they went bankrupt and they got a notice, and they're not getting their money, so it increased the cost of the inner cities. But regarding the DUA and the debt that all the 13 or 19, whatever it was, communities incurred, any idea roughly when that repayment on that mortgage will drop off? Are we talking 10 years, 30 years?
So there is a, I don't have a copy of it with me today. There is a debt schedule. No, actually I do. Shit. So, in tracking the cost, the true cost of why the water is so high, because it puzzled me. It shouldn't be that way. We're buying water from the same source.
And somebody could be, it's almost like throwing darts at the dartboard.
No, actually,
Before Director Deeb got involved. Go ahead.
So actually, I have a breakdown of all the debt that we pay, the mortgage payments, for every dollar that the DUA is on the hook for in order to operate that plant. So from the original debt service, when the DUA was created and we signed up for it, they purchased that plant. So they paid the county money, down payment plus balloon payment, which, by the way, this year is another balloon payment due, which is like $7.5 million every 5 years, to the Wayne County. Then they took out loans to do the improvement because the place was a dump, literally.
Yeah.
I remember I was with the county back then, so I know how it was.
Often we toured it with keep going.
But you tour it now and you see the difference. So the company that was created and the authority was good, except all of that cost money, right? So they took out loans to improve the place. And then you've got the operating cost, to cost to
mortgage,
operate.
yeah, so we need
So
further
you've got your
mortgage.
So all of
refinance.
these debt services, and they all have a timeline and schedule. So when I put these together, again, I'm not an accountant, there's probably a different way of doing it, but I put the original bond that we sold, our debt service from Plant Moran, to know what years, and then these services. So all three of them are stapled together, and I keep that in my mind, in my thing. Why?
Come on.
I'm done.
This
No, this was for him.
No, this is intentionally, because every step,
This is our water rates, gentlemen. Go ahead.
every decision you make on any of them will impact that water rate. So we started this discussion, why our water rate are so high? It's not because we're paying too much for water and sewers, it's because of these.
Mr. Deeb,
So somebody.
I want you to know something.
Hold on.
Truly,
please,
I follow you blindly.
Please.
Look at the,
I didn't elect this, I didn't want this responsibility.
Councilman.
He wants to finish, let him finish, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Just so we get this done quickly, and I apologize, my nephew
No, it's
is,
all
I'm worse than he is. Anyway, no, great job, and The punchline is, so it's an enterprise fund, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
We can't just say, so Plant Moran gives us a recommendation.
Right.
And in the past, councils have voted to say, well, we're gonna lower 25%. And then what happened was we never actually enacted that budget. Council Chair Abdullah and I were the two deciding votes to get the bond for the, include the meters, which, you know, we ran out of dough. But so what you're telling us, and we're listening, is the recommended number for the increase, while high, you know, we'd love to say it's zero. This council would, I'm up the door, so I don't care. Zero, there's a lot of calculation that goes into that number.
So when Plant Moran, and I get a copy of that, when Plant Moran does their calculation, what they do is they get this information from our suppliers, so they know. So it's not like, you know, suppliers saying, give me 8%. They get all of that and find out. So the 8% is the result of all these charges, right? So operating costs, the debt service, you know, your mortgages, and so on and so on, and the balloon payments, right? So they look at them and say, okay, so that mortgage is not going to last forever, right? So they say, okay, so for that mortgage, when does it drop off? So they look at say, okay, so in 28, that mortgage drops off, so that means you lower your bill to me by the cost to offset that payment. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm actually doing the same in my projection before we blindly agree to
The increase.
Eagle and say, I'm gonna sell bond to go pay it for it. No, I say my problem, and I gave copies to Eagle because they argued with me. You know, oh, you guys, that's mandated. You have to follow the law. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but we go broke. So I will follow the law. When my debt service drops in 28 or 32, if I drop this by 100,000, I can pick up another 100,000. See what I mean? So
he is
robbing Peter to pay Paul.
No.
Come on. So thank you for auditing that. So we have Plant Moran give us the number, but also our director, Ali Deeb, audits the number that only an engineer could do for the city, for both we'll call it the north, and the area of the city and the DUA. So very excellent job.
I appreciate it. So ultimately, if we get that resolved with them, it's going to, for us going forward, we'll have a process in place that will set it for the next generation. We know what we flow. So anytime we get an invoice, you get an invoice on your water bill, it will say a D for DUA or R for Rouge.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the same account number, it wasn't really a hard thing to do. Just put a damn code on it, you know?
Councilman Bidun's got a question?
Thank you.
I was just giving a statement to Mr. D, but like I said,
You're picking on me today.
No, I'm not. I promise you I'm not. I'm just, look, I follow you blindly, but this is, you broke some news to me so casually that we don't, we're not prepared for the water meters, and it bothered me, but I want you to know, I know that you said we're going to be getting this fund, and it's not, we will. So when we get those funds, let's make priority that, hey, we made promises to residents.
I know, and I would love to do that. I would love to do that because that will be, but what I don't want to do, I have to be fiscally responsible. If I'm doing that 25, if I'm managing that bond money, I can't put a contract on the street and bring it over to you for approval and tell you, I don't know where the money's coming from, you know? I mean, I know I'm short, right?
Look, I will tell you the former DPW director who did a great job. Amazing job. I can't even say anything about Mr. Salami. When the CSO bonds came to vote on that, I was fairly new on council. I'll tell you the truth. And you've just given me some insight right now that, look, I plan on being a part of the city for a long time. Somebody brings up a CSO bond to me in 20 years. You know what I'm going to tell them, right? State, you're forcing us to do it. Give us the money.
That's exactly.
You got it. I wish I knew that 2 years ago.
I told the state that, and they don't like me. They go around me now because.
Well, that's probably why we're not getting any money then.
Others, that's exactly. I said, mandated. I agree. I love to not be able to discharge into the rivers, absolutely. But why am I doing that? And ICSA doesn't have to do it. Right. They have the same. They're discharging into the same pipe. Exact same pipe.
They got a financial hardship exemption,
So do I.
but it sent things on and on and on.
So what can we do as a city to lower the water rates? Us as a city, us ourselves.
We are on the right,
Call Mr. Deeb and get three of them.
no, we're going in the right track. I truly believe we're on the right track now. Haven't spent 2 years looking at that issue. What we're doing now is probably, so in addition to that, we're working, so I don't know if you got into the water, budget, but on the water budget, we have an unacceptable level of water main breaks, which is water loss to us, which is something that we have to include on our water bill. So, what we did this year to not be reactive but proactive, we mapped all of our cities' location where water mains have taken place. And then all the water main breaks were concentrated in sections of the cities that are surprisingly older than me. So that's pretty old. So
Not old enough.
Not older than me, go ahead.
So what we do for the replacement, we want it to be proactive. So if a section of a water main break in the particular location of the city breaks 10 times a year, that's time to go and replace the damn thing, right? So that's our planned replacement is in that regard. And what's funny even, that you have possible funding sources to assist you in that regard. So if you get the Drinking Water Act money, and which we applied for, if I get funding assistance, even at 50-60%, to replace that, I'm updating my water line. I'm also saving on water main breaks, so I don't have to pay the labor. You know,
Anything else on the directors from your end before we go to public comments?
So, I mean, the other thing we're looking at to reduce our water main breaks is there's a tool called a pressure relief valve. And we've bought some temporary ones that we put on the hydrants, and what they're made to do is then when there's a high spike in pressure, it dumps water rather than let it, impact the line. We're looking at putting in some permanent pressure relief valves. These won't dump, they'll just, keep our water pressure at a constant state of, whatever our water reliability study would determine it should be. Some of the problems we experienced, last, I think it was, September, October, and November with the high number of water main breaks was a result of when Great Lakes Water Authority had that massive pipe failure out in Shelby or up in the north end. They were pushing a lot more water through our system and through our trunk, well, not necessarily through our system, but through the trunk lines that feed our community. And we were having to deal with the spikes in pressure from, their controlling. I mean, their control of their system isn't a very automated thing, and it's an older plant and things. Everything's done manually. So we were regularly experiencing spikes in pressure that were, causing major failures in our system. These pressure relief valves would minimize those spikes. They're pricey, but I mean, I think it's something that, me and Ali have been talking about. They've talked about putting them in here in the past, and due to cost, they've elected not to do it. I think we have to say, hey, it's costing us too much money in labor and materials to continue this path, and the wear and tear on my staff when we're out there. I mean, water main breaks don't typically occur, from 7:30 to 4. They occur at 5 p.m.
Right.
or they occur at 2 in the morning. So that would help us. So you may see some of that coming in the future where we're going to start 6-meter pits we have that we would like to put these on. We'll probably start with our 2 to 4 busiest or the ones that have the highest volumes through them and work on those. But
Thank you.
it is part of the solution to try to lower the, so what we do is, during the water reliability study, we examine how much water we buy from the supplier versus the total we sell to citizens. And the difference between the two is the water loss. We still have to pay Great Lake Water or Detroit DWSD, GLUA. We still have to pay for that water. So if we lose water due to water main breaks. In addition to the labor cost involved in the repairing that, you still have to pay for the product. So water loss is a major thing, and we constantly keep that in mind. So the water pressure, there's another issue too. With Great Lake, when we're done with the current study, I might be going after them for exceeding their contracts with us, so we'll be suing them too.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Matt Shank used to be.
Let's go ahead and go to public comments. Anybody in the audience?
I've got some clarification questions about the water stuff. Rachel LaPointe, Merrick Street, Dearborn Heights. With the DUA debt, so that'll drop off at some point, right? That those like mortgages, unless they take out more loans, correct?
Yes.
And then at that point, theoretically, we could lower the bill if it's currently included in the billing process, right?
In theory, yes.
In theory. Do we know when those will fall off by?
There's like 17 or 18 mortgages currently in place, and they all have different due dates.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
With the, you mentioned that the bond repayment's already included in our water bills. It's not a separate line item, so is that just getting bulked into the other ones? This might be maybe more for the treasurer, or maybe it's you guys, but could residents get that broken out into a separate line item so they can see this is your water charge, your sewer charge, your bond repayment charge?
It was an ask by the council and the treasurer. I remember at the time said that that's some, either she's implemented or implementing.
Okay, so it should be something that can happen.
As I recall from her, yes.
Okay, might need to talk to Lisa about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that would help people understand why their bills may have jumped more recently. Because there's a big discussion on Facebook going on about it now. So in the budget, it's on page 54, the water meeting, reading, and repair. It includes 4.5 million projected activity this year and an additional 4.5 million for next year. What is that for in capital outlay? Because I assumed that was the water meters when I saw it. Page 54, I said.
Today.
Because now we're no water meters, but 9 million total in here seems like water meters. I don't know.
Or you want to continue to answer your questions, and then they can answer at the end since your time. I haven't paused right now, but.
That looks like that's just the bond payment.
Oh, that must be the bond. Yeah.
Oh, that's the bond payment? Okay, all right, awesome, thank you. The water fund balance itself, which is 2 more pages, page 56, it's projected at the end of the year after everything that would be at $83 million. Is there a reason why we couldn't just pull from the fund balance and not do a rate increase this year? And just lower that fund?
That's not, is that?
Because that's just money in the bank account, right? Essentially?
I can't answer that right now.
Would,
Yeah, we would have to check.
would that maybe be something that council could decide to
If I
do?
remember from David Sabuda last year, we have to keep a minimum amount in fund balance, which is.
7 million.
Yeah, it was like a period of time, like a year or 18 months or whatever. He had a period of time that we're mandated to keep money in our fund balance. And I think that's why.
It's so high?
That's, in order, that's what's necessary to keep our minimum fund
Okay,
balance.
so that might be something that council could request to ask to look at what that number would be and if there is a possibility to do that idea of lowering the fund balance. To have a lesser increase or something.
Don't know about that, I mean.
It's an idea.
Yeah.
That's something they could look into. Okay. It kind of relates to, the water billing discussion is reminding me that we don't have income streams, which is really what Mr. Deeb was saying too about like the grants and never asking for money from the state, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see city council pursue further income streams. I think we dropped the ball on the golf course and potential for income streams there majorly. But we are also dropping the ball in other areas. Marijuana dispensaries brought in cities in the first year. It was about 20K per dispensary. The second year it was 60K per dispensary, and I'm guessing it's only going to go up from there. At this point, culturally, as a state, we're more comfortable with things. And the fact is, we need income. And it might be time to relook at that decision that was made many years ago and think about the residents who maybe need to use cannabis for medical needs. It's a pain in the butt to drive to River Rouge or downtown or wherever you have to go to get medication. So it might be something for council to consider as a way to bring in some more income. And that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Zoom.
Nobody else here? Anybody on Zoom? See no one? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and you have yourselves a good weekend.